All right. Let's start it. Welcome, everyone. Today we have Gatsby Cloud 101. So what does that mean? What are we going to cover today? We're going to go over signing up to Gatsby Cloud itself, connecting your VCS of choice. We're going to go through building a site and connecting a CMS, which you'll see is kind of the sweet spot of Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud. And we'll go through some of the great features that are on Gatsby Cloud, including previews and some of the hosting things. Lastly, we'll just kind of wrap it up with looking at workspaces and how we kind of organize our work in Gatsby Cloud today. All right, so first we'll go over the framework quick, how we think about things and how we mesh that together with Gatsby Cloud. And then we'll get out of slideware ASAP and get to Generosa, who's going to walk us through an amazing demo of Gatsby Cloud with a real world use case. At our heart, we are focusing kind of on these four things when it comes to what we're doing for building a web framework on top of React. Performance and the multiple methods of rendering now, but purely at our heart, static site generation, bringing all of your assets pre-rendered at build time to an edge network for the fastest possible performance. Sourcing that data from all sorts of different APIs, CMSs, maybe an Excel sheet local, but our data layer and that story and what we're doing there, as well as security and scalability, which kind of go together in our decoupled nature. Having a static site, having decoupled web architecture where your CMS, your front end, and different parts of your database are not sitting in one kind of server, that's going to give you huge benefits, not only in security with the lowering or the smaller attack surface you'll have. There's no constant login screen that you can find on the back end of your website that you can log into, or open connections with a database that make form entry always a nefarious situation. You just have a lot less of that going on when you have a static site. And lastly, scalability, because again, it's statically generated and decoupled. You don't have to bring along your database for every single time you get a traffic spike, right? It's only going to be that decoupled, pre-rendered, optimized front end layer. So you can get that Reddit hug of death or Super Bowl ad without worrying about impacting not only your website, but your website performance as well. And again, we follow this kind of three-step phase here. Gatsby makes it simple for developers and marketers to build amazing websites together. So content authors are writing content in their favorite CMS of choice. Developers source content from these CMSs into React components and templates. And then Gatsby statically generates that, brings that all together and displays that content in the web browser, either a mobile web browser or desktop, in an optimized, blazingly fast manner. So these three things are all going together. You'll see that we have kind of the templating language that we've had in the past, but you have the vast ecosystem of React to deal with. And it all gets easily deployed on Gatsby Cloud. Just want to throw this one slide in here quick. We're going to talk a little bit about it, but I've been talking a lot about static site generation, where we're pre-rendering all of the content at build time. With the introduction of Gatsby 4, we also now have access to multiple methods of rendering, including server-side rendering. So rendering content on the fly while at runtime. That's going to access a whole, or help you access a whole new use cases, a slew of use cases, like updating A/B tests on your network in runtime, thinking about data in maybe a different way, live scoring updates that need to be processed within seconds. You can do that all with SSR. And then we have this middle case here, deferred static rendering, where we're really taking the most critical portions of our website, rendering them at build time, so that the vast expanse of your user base is getting that static performance, but it doesn't take maybe hour-long build times for huge websites on the dev side. So we're really trying to balance the developer experience and the user experience across these rendering methods. All right, so to break down Gatsby Cloud into four kind of pieces before we get to our demo. We think about it as creating, collaborating, delivering, and then organizing. And that's how we kind of walk through the Gatsby Cloud demo today. We create our website. We have a huge library of starters, which are pre-made templates that come with pre-configured plugins. And then we also just have our general plugin library, which has over 2,500, I think, entries at this time that help you just do all sorts of small pieces or bring in small pieces of functionality into your website with the simple one line of code. It also helps makes you focus on configuring and tooling more than actually writing brand new code for something that's already been done. Collaborating in the cloud. Every single pull request, every single merge gets its own branch with its own preview environment in cloud that's shareable at any time. Also, when you're working in the CMS, we have a preview server that's always on that allows you to preview drafted content. So you don't need to publish anything. You'll always have kind of your staging URL for your marketing team, and they can see content before they actually hit the publish button. Delivering, how we deliver our sites on Gatsby Cloud is on the edge, the CDN back from Fastly. We offer free SSL, all traffic over HTTPS2, global points of presence, and really a scalability that you can depend on with a world-class name like Fastly. And then lastly, organization. Let's say you're a small agency or a larger internal team, and you have multiple websites to deal with, or you're just an at-home hobbyist. Workspaces allow you to organize your properties in a way that separates billing, separates users, separates kind of the information that might be pertinent to that one website. And it allows you to kind of work in a hierarchical way. All right, so that's my 10 minutes up front of walking through Gatsby Framework and Gatsby Cloud. And now we'll get to kind of what everyone is here for, hopefully, is Generosa's awesome demo. So Generosa, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen and just wanted to make sure you're seeing my screen where it says it's gatsbyjs.com.
Yep, we
Cool.
can see your screen.
Yeah, cool. So what I'm going to walk through now is just the sign up process. Then I'll go into creating a workspace and just, I mean, Dan spoke about workspaces, how it's a great collaborative environment. So I'll show that. Then I will go into some capabilities within Gatsby Cloud that you should be aware of. I'll add a site with the CMS backend, and that's the first portion. So let's just do that. So first and foremost, if you haven't signed up for a Gatsby Cloud account yet, please do so. It's very easy. Go to gatsbyjs.com, click sign up for free, and just go through what the user interface tells you to do. I'm just gonna type in my credentials here, and I'm gonna select California. I'll just say personal project, and then you then authorize either one of these VCS providers, or if you have single sign-on, we integrate with Okta, Azure DevOps. We can also work with those. So I already have authorization with GitHub. If you don't, what you will see is it'll ask you like for permission to access your GitHub accounts, and you can choose whether Gatsby Cloud has access to all repos or just some of them. So that's the first step. So as soon as you sign up, you need to set up your workspace. I already have some workspaces, so I don't want to show you my workspace because that's not emblematic of your experience. If you just signed up, this is what you're going to see. So I'm just going to say personal website here and click next. You pick a plan. You know, you want probably you need some payment. So basically you pick a plan and you enter your information, you pay, and then create your workspace. So that's the first step. So now that you have a workspace, so let's use mine. I have a workspace called GLitten. Let's go ahead and add some sites. Right now you see my space here. I have some sites, but let's imagine You have a brand new workspace with nothing in it. Let's add a site. So I clicked on add a site. Now Gatsby gives you two choices to add a workspace. On the left, you see that you can add your workspace from an existing repo, or you can add a workspace from a starter. So obviously the right one is nice because if you don't have a Gatsby site yet, you can actually just use the starter and get the Gatsby site going quickly. In my case, most of the customers I deal with already have a Gatsby site. So I'm going to just choose my Git repo, and I have a Sanity site that I'd like to add to Gatsby Cloud. So now I will just pick it. And what's happening is Gatsby is just going to look at this repo and looking at the environment here. And my internet connection's a little slower than most. But once it gets going, it'll basically ask which branch I would like to use for, as the main for the build. It defaults to main. You may have some other branches. So like here, I have another couple of branches. So I want to use the demo setup branch. And then the root folder is the location of your Gatsby config. Now with Sanity, Sanity is different from other CMSs in that it's got a Sanity Studio folder and a folder where you store your Gatsby website. So I call that folder web, and you can call it whatever you want. I just called it web. So you just tell Gatsby Cloud the location of your configuration file. So once it sees that, it will add some environment variables that it can easily find. Since Sanity doesn't have yet a quick connect configuration, we would need to add the variables manually, which is not a problem. I'll just hit bulk add. Let me just copy my Sanity variables here. Oftentimes you have a longer list than this. So I'm just going to copy that here, add that, just do the same thing for the preview and add that. I'll just remove that because there's nothing there, and hit save, and then you build your site. So it's that simple. And once you're done, you would have a site similar to what we're looking at here. So now we're switching gears. I'm going to show you the experience of working with Gatsby and a CMS. Now I'm moving from Sanity to Contentful. So I already have a Contentful site deployed in Gatsby Cloud. Just want to show you a few things in Gatsby Cloud that you should be aware of. So first and foremost, we went through adding a site. So you can see the site details here. We looked at environment variables. You notice these are preview and build webhooks. You would need these webhooks in Contentful so you can preview your content. The build is automatically added when you do the integration. Content sync is a new capability we added within the last month that allows you to preview your Contentful content in place. So if you're editing a page that's maybe in a different location than the home page, and you're in Contentful and you hit preview, you will actually go to that page. And I'm going to demo that as well. A couple of things I want you to be aware of that a lot of my customers are not familiar with is notifications. This is a feature I really like to use, especially if your build times are a couple minutes long and you want to do something else while it's building. You can set up a notification channel like Slack or email to tell you, hey, the build succeeded or it failed. So that's something that I encourage you to explore. The other thing that is really nice with Gatsby Cloud is you can put your previews and builds behind a password or a login. This is really nice, especially if you're launching a new page or new content or new feature that you don't want your viewers to see yet. So typically those are, you can password protect that. So those are a couple of things that are really nice with Gatsby Cloud. Okay, so now I am going to move to the second part of my demo. So it's 1 out of 3. I'm now in part 2. And in this portion, I'm going to be talking about the developer workflow. So a lot of times developers, are interested in Gatsby Cloud and they want to understand, hey, I already have GitHub or I already use other, systems. What's in it for me? Why should I use Gatsby Cloud? Well, first and foremost, Gatsby Cloud is built with the Gatsby framework. So the performance and runtime and the build time is going to be the best it's going to be. But other than that, in addition, Gatsby Cloud is makes your developer productivity better. You can not only see your production data, you can actually see your site in your production, but you can also look at your pull requests. So oftentimes, we as developers, we work in branches, and because we're adding a feature or we're fixing something, we want to see what that looks like, and we want to compare that with our production. So here in Gatsby Cloud, because we're integrated with your VCS, you can see your pull requests right here. And in fact, this is the GitHub account that is associated with that demo. And these are my pull requests right here. So these 3 pull requests are associated with these pull requests here. So every time I add a new branch or make a change, the pull request will appear in Gatsby Cloud, and I can compare that to the production. And you can even share that with your team. So they can see your builds or your changes in real time. And if you are happy with the pull request, it's approved and looks good, you can merge it here in GitHub, and it will merge right here in Gatsby Cloud. So again, very productive workflow. Now, the other use case that I see is, my customers say, hey, Rosa, that merge we did yesterday, actually, our CEO said that they preferred previous content from last week. Hey, we can actually revert to a previous build. So in Gatsby Cloud, if I just look at our production history, Gatsby Cloud will show me previous builds, far back, a couple months. So I can just look back maybe, a couple weeks or a few days ago, January 18th, for example. And, maybe this is the build that you prefer. You can actually take a look at it, and I can click publish, and that's it. We've reverted to a previous build. So again, very, very nice capabilities within Gatsby Cloud. So that's the typical developer workflow. I mean, we incorporate with your current workflow with your VCS, so it just blends in very nicely. So now I want to go to the third portion of my demo, and that is, how about the content contributors? Those who are actually working the CMS. They don't want to deal with writing code, or they don't want to deal with GitHub and all that. Well, one good thing with Gatsby Cloud is that we have incorporated previews. So you actually preview your work without actually looking at Gatsby Cloud or GitHub or any of that. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So first and foremost, this site is this site. It's a recipe site. And as you can see here, there is one card that doesn't have the correct image. So if I click on it, you would see it doesn't have the content and it's got the wrong icon. In fact, within Gatsby Cloud, you can also preview that content by just clicking on CMS previews and taking a look here. So now this is a preview version of what we just saw. Now what I'm going to do now is be in the shoes of the content creator. They're not looking at Gatsby Cloud. They're looking at their CMS. So now I'm going to go to Contentful and work from there. So this is my Contentful site. I'm now the content creator. I'm going to look at my content model here. And this is the space that needs work. You can see, fix me now. There was no content. the image here is the old image. So let's actually add the right content. So let me copy and paste my content here and go back to Contentful. So I'm going to do that. And at the same time, let me change my image. Just going to remove that, add the right image. That's my Gemelli image. Now take a look at other fields here. Prep time looks good. My JSON tags are fine. So, okay, I made the change, but I don't want to publish. I want to see how it looks. Again, because Gatsby Cloud is integrated with Contentful, we can actually look at a preview right within Contentful. And again, because of content sync, we're able to actually view your previews in place. So while that's going, let me just, as a developer, now I'm switching like mindsets. I'm now the developer. I'm going to go back to Gatsby Cloud and just kind of see, hey, what's going on in Gatsby Cloud is, I know my content creators are working in Contentful. Are they publishing? Are they doing previews? So as a developer, I can kind of also check Gatsby Cloud to see what's going on from a status. So it looks like there was some Contentful build. Let me just see if this is done. It's still, it actually errored out. But what I am expecting to see is an updated preview. Let me actually refresh the screen and make sure that previews. Just my internet connection is a little slow today, but that is seeing the preview in place is what you expect. And what you can do also is share this link with your content, with your colleagues, so they can say, hey, is this content good? Are we, still building a new preview? Are we good to go? And typically, you'll probably make some changes or whatnot. But the point is, you can work directly in Contentful, not having to write any code, and you can even publish your changes right there. So once it's good, we go back to Gatsby Cloud just to see, that the build is taking place, because we looked at the preview. Preview looked good. So now let's take a look. While this is going, I also wanted to mention the other rendering modes that Dan mentioned. With Gatsby 4, we now have rendering modes called Deferred Static Generation, or DSG, and SSR, Static Site Generation. So what does that look like? You notice in my Contentful space, I do have both modes enabled. So what that looks like in an actual site is the following. So I actually incorporated DSG, or Deferred Static Generation, in my blog page. Why that's good is because what happens with DSG is you can defer older content, or content that is not, maybe customers don't really click a lot. So what that means is Gatsby will not build it. So it will instead be server-side rendered. So in this blog post, I have all blog posts that are older than June 25. So from 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and maiden, these are all DSG. So this one, it's fast because I clicked on it before. So once customers click on it, it's already cached. So you've got the performance, but the initial click is typically a little slower. But these are all deferred DSG. The SSR, I have that also here in the new piece of my landing, or of my Contentful demo. But basically, this looks at, or it fetches data from a recipe API. So every time I click on the new button, it fetches a different recipe. So you see it's salmon pasta and so on. So that's another rendering mode that we introduced. And this type of rendering is very good for dynamic content or personalization. So with that, that is my demo. Just to recap, we looked at the sign up flow, creating a workspace, and then like these are my workspaces here. Can easily add a new one, and then I went through adding a site, and then we looked at an actual site that was already built. We looked at some site settings in terms of the different webhooks, notifications, being able to put logins or password protect your previous builds. Then we looked at the developer flow, how developers can look at their pull requests, merge them, and even revert them. Then lastly, we went through a content creator's workflow where they actually did some work within Contentful itself without, again, not having to write any line of code, publishing that and seeing the data up in Gatsby Cloud. So with that, that's the quick demo. Hope you enjoyed that. And back to you, Dan.
Thank you for that, Generosa. That was awesome. If anyone has any questions, feel free to write them in the Q&A section. We'll answer them. I do have a couple right now. One of them is around CMSs. What other CMSs can we expect functionality like that? I have a question around excuse me, Dado CMS and whether it would behave similarly with a preview. I would say.
Yeah. Oh, you wanted me to answer the question, or?
It's all right.
Yeah. I mean, with Dado CMS, I think we are working on enabling previews similar to what we do in Contentful, but I don't think we're there yet. So if you can validate that, I believe that's the case, right?
Yeah, I think that from a preview experience, the button is not in the same spot, but you'll still be able to build an incremental basis, so the webhook will still work. And I'd say that's the big thing with CMS is you either get two functionalities or 0 out of 2, 1 out of 2, or 2 out of 2. The first one is the preview ability. So we stand up like that Generosa showed, the staging server where undrafted or unpublished content goes and gets published too. And then the other part is the incremental build portion, which is just rebuilding only the data that changed. So anything that gets ingested into our data layer can take advantage of incremental builds. So you can think about it like that. I would say 99% of CMSs or APIs can use incremental build feature. The preview stuff is maybe hit or miss across the large swath of headless CMSs, but we're definitely adding new ones for sure each month. All right. Another question too around functionality and plan. Do you get incremental builds on all plans? Where are incremental builds available?
So I believe the answer is yes, because incremental builds is actually a function of the Gatsby framework. It's not really Gatsby Cloud per se, but what Gatsby Cloud adds to it is just additional processing power. So your builds would perform much, much better.
Yeah, I would say the standard incremental builds, open source and in the free plan, and then what we call cloud incremental builds. They are quite a bit faster. Incremental builds definitely knock down some good content. At least the trips you take to read the whole manifest of your data layer and change out. But the cloud one is going to give you that next layer of caching ability, which is really going to speed up your website when you have thousands of pages, but also things like images and such. All right. I don't have any other questions here today. Generoso, that demo was awesome. There are a couple of people here. All right, we got one. Yeah, there's another CMS question. So I would definitely say, from a like first class perspective, Sanity, Contentful, Content Stack, WordPress, Drupal, those are all CMSs that we're working with every day to improve our integrations and have a really great community base to get you started as well. So feel really confident about those. I would say you could start there. If you have any others, feel free to write in support@gatsbyjs.com or just check out our plugin library, gatsbyjs.com/plugins. You'll be able to see all the CMS plugins and all the Gatsby source plugins that we have that can source data from different places. All right. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good rest of your Tuesday.
All right, thank you. Have a good one. Bye.